We all want emotional security. We want to not be in a situation where our emotions are going up and down in reaction to external circumstances, external events, or external conditions. What we often encounter are situations where if we thought we just had everything a little bit differently, then we wouldn't have these triggers all around us, that the world wouldn't be as triggering to our emotions, and we wouldn't be as unstable up and down. And most people they don't consider themselves as unstable, but I would say most people are less emotionally stable than they could be or than they want to be. We all think that if the triggers were different or weren't there, then we wouldn't have negative emotions as often as we have them. But the more we analyze ourselves in situations, the more we all start to realize that our anxiety transfers. It doesn't necessarily end. Once we get the next phase of what we think will complete our lives or will make things better, we find that we're worrying about something a little differently. Even if we get the job that we want, we might be worrying about, is that person going to be there this day, or are these hours just going to get to me over time, or maybe they are getting to you, or perhaps you have the job and you realize you don't really want it. Or it could be anything. It could be a relationship. It could be your skill at any kind of entertainment hobby or music or creating YouTube videos. There's always greater skill to gain. And there's always that next bump that we think that will give us more emotional security so that we don't feel quite as unstable in our emotions. But those triggers are always going to be there. We have to practice not being anxious and practice being emotionally secure and satisfied in whatever conditions we exist in right now. Because when the conditions change, the anxiety doesn't necessarily change. Now, if you're in a really terrible situation where you are around violence a lot or you're around a lot of emotional abuse, yeah, those are big conditions that if you change those, you get away from that person or you get into a job that's way less stressful, yeah, it's going to change. But I'm talking about more micro changes that we imagine our lives will be better as the result of. We all want that emotional stability, but we don't gain it in times of ease. We gain it in times of tribulation, in times when we aren't as emotionally stable because there's a lot of triggers. We have to practice being stable while those triggers are there, while they are powerful, and while they're inflicting themselves on us. But we get to choose if we're inflicted. It may be a hard lesson to learn, but if we're hurt, generally speaking, and I'm not talking about extreme circumstances, but generally, if we're hurtable. We have to make ourselves not hurtable. Now, if you're in an abusive situation, that's different, but I'm talking about most people's situation. We are hurtable, we are alterable, rather than unaltered. And the world alters us through our emotions. It affects us through our emotions. It's really hard to change somebody's mind about religion or politics after the age of 30, but what constantly gets altered in reaction to external events is our emotions. Now, since I'm a spiritual YouTuber and this is a spiritual channel, the next phase of this is going to be me talking about things that I would recommend but don't always do. But when I do them, they actually help quite a bit. So whatever mantra you're using or you often use, and if you want to look up some basic ones that aren't especially dangerous or hazardous or aren't especially that everybody can kind of not get a bad reaction from, like Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha or Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, ones that you've heard me say on this channel time and time again. Those two are Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha and Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Those aren't ones that are going to really cause you a lot of problems if you do them in the wrong place or in a wrong way. Those two are pretty wholesome and pretty non-dangerous. But what really helps is if you say them 108 times or more. So these mantras, they tap into the manifestation of reality itself and how reality becomes corporeal within our visual landscape, and our visual landscape being our mental visual landscape and external, but also mental, because we're viewing our mind as well as everything outside of our mind, everything outside of our body. We're viewing everything within ourselves. Since we're viewing our mind, that landscape can change from the employing of mantras. But saying them 108 times, as far as Vedic sciences go, 108 has a very powerful number. And the more times that you say a mantra, 108 is very key. I don't always say my mantras 108 times, but I should. But the more that you say a mantra, the more that it plants a seed within you. And you're planting that seed. It's almost like you're planting that seed, working with that seed, and growing that seed. When you're saying the mantra again and again and again, you're nourishing a flower of that reality to become part of your reality within yourself. And once it becomes reality within yourself, then you'll find that the reality around you changes. But 108 times is very good for most mantras. And saying the mantra again and again and again, you are planting the seed, working with the soil, watering it, growing it, and it's becoming part of your reality, or it's changing your reality for the better. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that mantra is for the ending of suffering. Very good. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. That one for Ganesh is very good for removing obstacles and really tapping into your intellect. Anything to do with Ganesh is good for removing obstacles and tapping into your intellectual, the side of your intellectual intelligence that is very much informed by your soul and the life force, spirit, prana. Anything connected with Ganesh is going to really tap into those things. But when we're talking about Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that one is associated with Vishnu and ending of suffering, and even, since it's Vishnu, Krishna as well. But 108 times, if you say one of these mantras 108 times every day, at a certain time of day, you'll find that your inner and external reality will be changing. So another thing that I should do, and that would help me and does help me when I do it, but I usually don't. I usually meditate at the end of the day, the very end of the day, after I get home from work, after I've done my little Kali Puja, I'll meditate. What I should do is meditate twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. So I do meditate at night, I don't meditate in the morning. But when you meditate in the morning, you're setting yourself up for emotional security for the day. That doesn't mean you'll necessarily get it, but you are setting yourself up and you're putting yourself in a place to be more emotionally secure in reaction to whatever you're going to meet in that day, during that day. And of course, you should know some meditation tactics. I have videos on meditation, but you can look them up. You look up other videos on YouTube, and you can find all kinds of literature on meditation. And if you just learn how to basically meditate, breath is great. Breath is instrumental. Body position is instrumental. And learning how to organize your thoughts in relation to your breath. I started with this method, pushing out your thought, imagining a bubble within the center of your brain and pushing out thoughts. As you're breathing out, that bubble gets bigger, pushing out all thoughts. Breathe in, retract. And feel that at the center of your head. Feel it as a force that is pushing thoughts out. And then when it retracts, more thoughts might come around, push it out again. Trying to do that, maybe before trying to incorporate a mantra where you're saying it mentally, might help. But whatever meditation that you learn, it's important that you do it every day at the same time. And I'd highly recommend in the morning and at night. But morning is, if you're going to do it once a day, do it in the morning. I always do it at night when I should do it in the morning, and I should do it also at night. I should do it both times. Ideally, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. I only meditate 16 minutes a day at the end of my day. But when I meditate more, I found in the past that it sets me up for emotional security for the day, and I have a leg up on anything that might confront me in the external world, and my reaction to them will be more even-handed, even-minded, as it were. Another very important thing that we should do every day is touch base with God, our idea of God. I pray to the Divine Mother Kali. I worship God through the Divine Mother. I'm a Shakta, but it's important to pray and touch base with God at least once a day. Whenever you want to do it is good, but just do it at the same time every day. When you touch base with the source, that is you calling back home to something that is beyond anything that you will encounter in this world. Any kind of emotional distress you might have, any kind of trigger in the external world, if you touch base with God regularly or every day, then you're setting yourself up to meet things that are temporal or temporary in this world with a more vaster perspective, a perspective that is stepped back rather than a perspective that exists just in reactions. It's important to exist in the moment, but a lot of time when we're viewing the moment, we're viewing it as what's going on around us, what's triggering us, what are the problems, and those become our entire reality. What really living in the moment means, being mindful of the moment, is being aware of everything, being aware of your breath, being aware of your skin, being aware of your blood, being aware of everything around you. The problems become they become these spears into our mind, and they become everything that we see in our mental landscape. But there's so much other stuff going around, and if we are aware of what's happening externally and internally, we can see that the mind, thoughts arise again and again and again in a similar way to how breath works, how different things in the world happen. But we start to see them as something that's thoughts as something that's not quite us, but it's something else. These thoughts it's almost like they're not a part of us. They're a part of everything that's going on, but they're not really a part of us. We identify with our thoughts, but we shouldn't. And a lot of the time, people who have trouble, mental issues, I think everybody has mental issues at least a little bit, but most people that have mental issues, they can't control what they think. And you might not be able to control what you think. I mean, you can get to a place where you can, but you might not be able to control what you think. But you can control your reaction to what you think and what you believe. If you have an intrusive thought that's negative, you don't have to believe that thought. If you have a thought that's disturbing, you don't have to emotionally react. You might not be able to control your thoughts when you first start out, and I can't control my thoughts all the time, but you can control your reaction to your thoughts. And you don't have to be tied up in them, and you start to see them as something occurring as external things occur, and as often as you need to breathe. Being mindful, being aware of all of that, you start to get a hold of what thoughts are and how your mind works and how it's part of the environment rather than part of what you really are. And you start to feel yourself behind all of that. So it's important to touch base with God and to have that vaster perspective and to understand what it is to be mindful of the moment. I think touching base with God kind of helps that along in a very important way because it gives us a kind of a bird's eye view of everything. Even if we're telling God about our day, how bad it was, how awful it was, and all the little things that bothered us, try to enter your hopes into your prayers, but also try to enter in what you like about yourself and what you like about your day into your prayers. See, while it might seem like you'd be focusing on smaller things, so you wouldn't be able to have a bird's eye view. But God gives us little mercies when we touch base and we talk to God often. If we do so every day, the same time of day, then it becomes regular. Then this grander perspective slowly builds over time, even if it's just speaking to God about regular stuff. Everything that we hope and what we would like for a day, we should add into that. But you'll find the more that you talk to God, the easier it is to see past all the minutia. So yeah, this has been a video about emotional security and spiritual solutions to that, achieving that. Talked a little bit about mantra, talked a little bit about mindfulness, talked about touching base with God, and I talked about meditation. I hope that these little insights have been helpful. If you like this video at all, hit that thumbs up down there. It really helps out the channel, and feel free to share this wherever you like. And feel free to leave a comment down there if you watched to the end of the video. I always love to hear when y'all watch to the end of the video because most people do not. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Jai Ma, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.